Hi everyone, it's Eric from ecommon12.blogspot.com and welcome to my continued coverage of the HP Pavilion TouchSmart laptop. In this video, as promised, we are going to take a look at the gaming performance of this mid-ranged machine. Now we are going to test 3 games here: Rambo, Batman Arkham City, and Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. We will start from the least all the way to the highest intensive game. So let's kick things off with Rambo. Now this game just recently hit the market and visually it's not the best looking of games, but it is still a recent title which will be interesting to test on this computer. Anyway, let's talk about the CPU and GPU. So the HP Pavilion has a 1.6 GHz Intel Core i5 quad-core processor. It is also worth noting that this sports the latest Haswell architecture. As for the GPU, it has an NVIDIA GeForce GT 740M graphics card with a whopping 2 GB of dedicated video memory. That is an awesome graphics card for this range of laptop. As for the performance, well, you've been seeing it on your screen. It runs very well. In fact, Rambo runs at around 30 frames per second consistently. I'm not reviewing the game, but it's really nothing special. It's not as bad as other people say in my opinion, but it's still very tedious and the graphics are unimpressive. They do have some current gen graphic techniques, but on the whole it is a very boring game to look at. The game did crash on me once though. It just happened out of nowhere, and at first I thought it was this laptop, but after some research it turns out that this is a common problem with the PC version of the game at least. So it's not the fault of the laptop, but the fault of the game, and the developers of the game for not polishing it up. Next we've got one of my most favourite games of all time, Batman Arkham City. Now I have turned the graphics on max and enabled physics, and the game runs relatively well. You get around 20 to 30 frames per second with those maxed out settings, but that is not the most ideal experience. The game will lag quite a bit and the frame rate drops a little often. So if you alter the graphics to its medium settings and put a few textures on max, then that will work great and you'll consistently get 30 frames per second with the occasional drop in frames. Also, something to note is that the frame rate is higher most of the time in the challenger maps, but it tends to drop a bit more often in free roam. So I gave you my personal thoughts on the Rambo game, so I suppose I should do the same thing here. All in all, this game is great. The story is great, the voice acting is great, the cutscenes are great, and the gameplay is a lot of fun. The Predator mode is awesome, and the combat system is revolutionary. It's not perfect in terms of hit detection, but it still is awesome and a ton of fun. Overall, this is the best Batman game I've ever played, and I am really looking forward to the next Batman game from Rocksteady called Batman Arkham Knight. So on with the most intensive game, Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. Now I know this game was released quite a few years ago, but believe it or not, a lot of laptops I've tested have been experiencing issues running this game. This game just seems to be too much for laptops apparently. This would not even run on my late 2012 £1,500 MacBook Pro properly. Even on the lowest graphical setting, the MacBook choked over running this. Now it runs on this laptop at, again, more often than not, at 30 frames per second, and that's on the medium graphics setting, with motion blur and reflections enabled. On the maximum graphics setting, where all the effects are in play, it runs at around 25 frames per second. Now that might be hitting it a bit low for some people, but the game is still more than playable. This is actually the first time I played through the whole game, by the way. So before I close this video off, let's briefly give you my thoughts of this game. All in all, the game has many good aspects and quite a few welcomed improvements to its predecessor, but the gameplay is less varied and comes off as more repetitive. Also, the entire story only took me about 4.5 hours to beat as opposed to the 8 to 9 hour campaign that the first game offered. This was a rushed sequel to what was a very promising series. The ending leaves you at a cliffhanger, but considering it's been over 3 years, I seriously doubt a sequel is in the works, and that is very unfortunate as I still like the direction these games were going in. So in closing, I've been extremely impressed with the gaming experience and performance this laptop offers, especially when you consider the price that it comes in at. Anyway, thanks very much for watching this video, I really hope you enjoyed it. This has been Eric from ecommon12.blogspot.com. Stay tuned for my next video, which will be my full review of the HP Pavilion, and as always, until then, I will see all of you next time. Take care.
Look, there, Roger, let's do this!